The sun of Zorinthia hung low over the alien city, casting long shadows across the spires that gleamed like crystals. From the highest tower, Empress Kalira looked down at her kingdom. Her eyes were sharp, yet distant, as if they could see through the walls of her palace into the memories she tried to keep locked away. Even in this empire of wonders, Kalira carried a quiet sorrow. Her mind often drifted back to her human husband, who had given his life in a war across the stars. He had been brave, clever, and full of warmth. She had loved him deeply, and even decades later, that love lingered like a soft shadow in her heart. The sound of footsteps echoed through the marbled halls of the palace. Soldiers moved in disciplined lines, their uniforms glinting with the strange metals of Zorinthia. Today, a new presence would enter the palace, one that would stir something in Kalira she had not felt for many years. A human guard had arrived to serve her, as part of a diplomatic agreement between her empire and Earth. Humans were rare in her world, and their abilities were often underestimated. But this one was different. Elias stepped off the transport vessel with cautious curiosity. He was tall, strong, and ordinary in the way humans could be ordinary in a galaxy full of towering, exotic beings. His uniform was designed to fit human proportions, slightly rigid in the shoulders, but he carried himself with a quiet confidence. He had trained for this role for years, learning the ways of alien diplomacy, security protocols, and survival in unfamiliar environments. Yet nothing had prepared him for the first glimpse of the Empress. Kalira entered the grand hall with her usual grace, her flowing robes shimmering with energy patterns that shifted with her movement. When she saw Elias, she froze. The resemblance was uncanny. The shape of his jaw, the calm intelligence in his eyes, even the way he carried himself, it reminded her too much of her lost husband. A strange ache gripped her chest, and for a moment the years seemed to vanish. She was not ready to face this yet. Elias, unaware of the connection, bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, I am Elias, here to serve as your guard," he said, his voice steady but polite. He had been instructed on formalities, yet there was something in his tone that made even the most seasoned alien guards pay attention. It carried a subtle authority, the kind earned through respect rather than fear. Kalira blinked, collecting herself. "Welcome to Zorinthia," she said, her voice controlled but tinged with curiosity. "You will report to Commander Vashel for your duties. He will show you the palace and introduce you to the other guards." He observed quietly, noting patterns and possibilities, his mind working like a finely tuned instrument. Commander Vashel, a large, insectoid alien with multiple arms, spoke with authority. "Human guards are rare here. Most are sent for training, then return to their home worlds. You, however, have been chosen for your intelligence and adaptability. Do not fail the Empress." Many have tried and many have faltered. When a drone malfunctioned in the palace gardens, Elias examined it with curiosity, using only basic tools and common sense. Within minutes, it whirred back to life. The other guards watched in amazement. Kalira observed all of this from a distance. She could not explain the way her heart reacted every time Elias succeeded. There was a sharp pang of recognition, a memory of laughter, courage, and kindness that belonged to someone she had loved. She caught herself thinking, "It cannot be him, it is impossible, and yet it is as if he carries his spirit." A group of alien saboteurs had attempted to enter disguised as merchants. While the palace guards panicked, Elias remained calm. He quickly analyzed the situation, pointing out weaknesses in the gate's defenses and coordinating a response. Using both alien technology and simple human ingenuity, he managed to contain the threat before it could escalate. The Empress watched from her chambers as her new guard moved with precision, courage, and clarity of mind. It was unlike anything she had seen in her court. The aliens, powerful and experienced, were struggling, but Elias' human perspective turned the tide. Kalira felt a mixture of relief and awe. Here was someone who was not only human but extraordinary in ways that the galaxy rarely saw. That evening, Kalira summoned Elias to her private audience chamber. The walls shimmered softly, reflecting the stars beyond the palace windows. "You have done well today," she said, her voice steady. "Your actions saved many lives, including members of my council. How did you know what to do?" Humans often solve problems differently than your species, and sometimes that makes all the difference. And the more she watched Elias, the more she saw echoes of her husband in his movements, his decisions, and his quiet courage. As days turned into weeks, Elias became more integrated into the palace life. He learned the customs of Zorinthia, formed bonds with other guards, and even gained the trust of minor council members who had initially doubted him. Yet he never sought attention or favor. He acted with integrity, showing respect to everyone, from the humblest servant to the Empress herself. Kalira, meanwhile, struggled with her feelings. She tried to separate memory from reality, past from present, but it was impossible. She could not stop noticing the way Elia's smile reminded her of her husband's, or the way he approached danger with calm reasoning instead of fear. Her council began to notice her distraction, though they could not identify the cause. Some whispered about the unusual influence a human could have over the Empress, but Kalira dismissed it with polite deflection. One night, as the twin moons of Zorinthia rose over the city, Elias patrolled the outer walls alone. He observed the stars and thought of Earth, his home planet, and the journey that had brought him here. He did not yet understand the full weight of his presence in the palace, nor the silent impact he had on the Empress. But he felt a quiet determination to protect this world and the people he had come to serve. Suddenly, a disturbance rippled through the palace grounds. A shadow moved with stealth and purpose, testing the palace defenses. Elia's instincts kicked in. He followed the disturbance, quietly tracking the intruder with careful steps. When he confronted the saboteur, he acted quickly and decisively, subduing the alien with minimal force. His methods were precise, efficient, and clever, something his training had prepared him for, but also something uniquely human. By the time Kalira arrived to see the result, Elias stood calmly over the subdued intruder. "The palace is secure," he said simply. "No one will pass unnoticed." It was as if history itself had paused, allowing her to witness a reflection of the past without fear or regret. Yet she knew the resemblance alone was not enough to guide her actions. Elias was not her husband. He was his own person with his own mind and heart. And still, she could not ignore the strange pull she felt toward him. The weeks that followed were filled with small triumphs. Elias helped the palace operate more smoothly, often suggesting solutions that were simple but effective. The alien council began to respect him, some even admiring the human capacity for ingenuity. Kalira watched him carefully, sometimes from across the hall, sometimes observing him in quiet moments when he did not realize she was near. She felt a mixture of admiration, nostalgia, and an unfamiliar hope. One evening, as a soft rain fell over the palace gardens, Kalira approached Elias herself. The air was heavy with the scent of alien flowers and the sound of dripping water. "You have adapted well to Zorinthia," she said. "Your presence here, it changes many things." "I am only doing my duty, Your Majesty. My goal is to serve and protect." "That is not your burden to carry, and yet I cannot ignore it." As the night deepened, Kalira turned away, leaving Elias to his thoughts. He remained in the garden, reflecting on the strange twists of fate that had brought him here. He did not know the full story of his resemblance or the Empress's memories, but he understood one thing clearly. He had a role to play in this empire, not as a replacement of the past, but as a bridge to the future. The palace lights glimmered in the rain, and Kalira watched from above, a mixture of memory and curiosity in her eyes. The arrival of this human guard had begun to change everything, not only in the way the court viewed humanity, but in the way she viewed her own heart. And somewhere deep within her, a spark of hope began to glow, quiet but persistent, that the future could hold new strength, courage, and perhaps even healing. The morning sun rose over Zorinthia, spilling gold and crimson light across the city's towering spires. The palace shimmered like a jewel in the light, and Kalira moved through its halls with her usual calm authority. Yet beneath her controlled exterior, a storm of thoughts swirled. The human guard, Elias, had quickly become a presence she could not ignore. Every glance at him brought memories of her lost husband, memories she had carefully stored away, hidden behind her duties and her power. Elias began his second week in the palace. He had grown familiar with the routines of the court, the habits of the other guards, and the intricacies of the alien technology that filled the halls. Though Zorinthia was unlike anything he had ever seen on Earth, he adapted quickly. He observed patterns in the palace's defenses, noticing details that others overlooked: a small crack in the energy shield, a subtle vibration in the outer gates, or the way certain drones reacted to sound. His mind worked constantly, connecting small observations into solutions, a method distinctly human and unexpectedly effective. Kalira watched him silently from the balcony one afternoon. He moved with purpose, interacting with alien guards who were skeptical of his presence. Yet he never spoke down to anyone, never demanded attention. Instead, he offered solutions in quiet confidence, demonstrating his intelligence without arrogance. Kalira's heart tightened with every gesture, every glance, every calm decision he made. She could not deny the feeling that somehow, in some strange twist of fate, he carried pieces of the man she had once loved. The tranquility of the palace was soon disrupted. Reports came of a minor sabotage in one of the outer courtyards. Devices meant to monitor the palace grounds had been tampered with, and a group of alien merchants had acted suspiciously near the gates. The council had immediately assumed it was an ordinary security breach, yet Kalira suspected something more. She knew that the humans in her court were underestimated. Elias, she thought, might be the one to notice what others missed. She found him inspecting the armory. "Elias," she said softly, drawing him aside, "there are rumors of trouble near the outer walls. Your insight may be needed." He noticed that some of the surveillance drones had subtle scratches, and the energy fields were slightly weaker in one sector. Where others might have panicked or assumed normal wear and tear, Elias understood that something deliberate had occurred. Using a combination of logic and intuition, he deduced the path the intruders might take and predicted where they would strike next. When the saboteurs appeared, disguised in cloaks that shimmered with minor illusions, Elias acted swiftly. He intercepted them before they could reach the main gates, using only non-lethal methods. He deployed small energy nets, carefully coordinated signals to the guards, and used distractions to contain the threat. The alien guards, initially confused by his human methods, quickly adapted and assisted him. Within minutes, the courtyard was secured, and the saboteurs were captured without serious harm. Kalira watched the events from the palace windows. She felt a mixture of pride, awe, and an unfamiliar warmth. Elias' human ingenuity had prevented what could have been a disaster, and he had done it without arrogance or cruelty. It was a reminder that humans, while physically weaker than many alien species, had strengths that could not be measured in muscle or weaponry alone. After the incident, Kalira summoned Elias to the council chamber. "You handled the situation with remarkable skill," she said. "Your understanding of strategy and quick thinking saved lives. How did you know what to do?" There was truth in them, undeniable truth. Her court had relied on strict procedures for centuries, believing that power alone ensured security. Yet here was a human, showing that intelligence, observation, and creativity could rival even the most advanced alien systems. Over the next few days, Elias continued to impress the court. He repaired malfunctioning devices, optimized guard rotations, and found small ways to make the palace more efficient. His methods were simple but effective, and they revealed a quality that the aliens rarely acknowledged: human adaptability. Kalira found herself observing him more frequently. She noticed the way he treated every guard with respect, the calm way he assessed challenges, and the quiet bravery that shone through even in ordinary tasks. Each time she watched him, memories of her husband surfaced, but now mixed with admiration for the person Elias was becoming. She realized that her feelings were complex. Elias was not her husband, and he did not bear the same experiences. Yet he embodied qualities that she had cherished and valued deeply, qualities that now seemed rare in her empire. One evening, Kalira walked through the gardens, the air filled with the scent of alien flowers and the soft hum of energy streams. Elias was there, inspecting a malfunctioning water channel that fed the palace fountains. "The flow is inconsistent," he explained to a nearby guard. "If we adjust these regulators, the pressure will balance and prevent overflow." She remembered the battles her husband had fought, the careful attention that had saved lives countless times. She felt a pang in her chest, a mixture of longing and respect. Yet she knew she could not let memory cloud judgment. Elias was not a memory. He was present, alive, and capable. He deserved recognition not for who he resembled, but for what he had done. Their growing connection did not go unnoticed. Members of the council whispered among themselves, curious about the Empress's interest in the human guard. Some viewed it with suspicion, fearing favoritism or distraction. Others quietly admired the courage of the human, impressed by his effectiveness and humility. Kalira dismissed the gossip, focusing instead on the man before her and the potential he represented. The next challenge arrived unexpectedly. A more serious breach occurred in the outer perimeter. This time, the intruders were armed and had insider knowledge of the palace defenses. While many guards panicked, Elias remained calm. He analyzed the situation, identifying weak points in the intruders, strategy, and coordinating a response that relied on both human ingenuity and alien technology. Elias' approach combined observation, improvisation, and courage. He directed the alien guards to take positions that minimized risk while maximizing coverage. He used simple distractions and clever traps to corral the intruders. When one of the attackers tried to disable a security drone, Elias anticipated the move and intercepted it with a calculated maneuver. The battle was brief but decisive. The intruders were captured, and the palace remained secure. Kalira observed the outcome from her chambers. She felt a complex mixture of relief, admiration, and something she struggled to define. Elias' bravery was undeniable, but it was more than that. He carried the essence of human resilience, the ability to face danger calmly, to think creatively, and to act decisively when others hesitated. It was a reminder that humans were not merely fragile beings. They could inspire and lead, even in worlds far beyond their own. After the incident, Kalira summoned Elias to the palace garden once more. The twin moons reflected on the wet stones, casting a soft glow around them. "Your actions today were remarkable," she said. "You did not act recklessly, yet you faced danger with courage. You have qualities that many here lack. My goal is to serve and protect. That is all I can do." The gardens were alive with alien sounds, the soft hum of energy streams mingling with the distant calls of creatures unseen. Kalira felt a strange sense of peace. She could not deny the pull she felt toward Elias, but she understood that her respect and admiration were what mattered most. He was not a replacement for the past, but a symbol of what the future could hold: strength, courage, and unexpected wisdom. Elias, unaware of the full weight of Kalira's thoughts, gazed at the stars. He thought of Earth, of the journey that had brought him here, and of the responsibilities he now carried. He did not yet know the full significance of his presence in the palace, but he understood one thing clearly. He had a role to play, not as a memory or a shadow, but as himself. And in that role, he could make a difference, not only for the Empress but for the entire empire. The palace lights flickered softly as they walked back to the main hall. Kalira watched Elias with a mixture of awe and curiosity. The human had already begun to change the court, showing that bravery, intelligence, and integrity could overcome prejudice and expectation. And for the first time in many years, she felt that the future of Zorinthia, and perhaps even her own heart, might be brighter than she had ever imagined. The palace of Zorinthia was quiet in the early hours, though the stillness was deceptive. Kalira moved through the grand corridors with a sense of unease. She had begun to notice subtle signs of unrest in her empire, messages intercepted by the palace intelligence, murmurs among council members, and reports of unusual activity near the outer provinces. The human guard, Elias, had proven himself reliable and clever, but even he could not see everything at once. Elias began his morning patrol at the palace gates, his eyes scanning every detail. He noticed the unusual pattern of ships arriving from the outer colonies, all claiming routine trade, yet their movements were synchronized in a way that suggested planning. His instincts, honed through years of observation and training, told him that this was no ordinary coincidence. Something was stirring in the empire, something that might threaten the Empress herself. Kalira, meanwhile, was in the council chamber, reviewing reports of minor disturbances in the provinces. The alien governors, proud and stubborn, often dismissed these signs as routine unrest. But Kalira sensed a larger pattern forming, one that her instincts told her could not be ignored. She needed Elias' perspective. "Elias," she said, summoning him to her chambers, "there are signs that unrest is spreading beyond the city. I want you to investigate discreetly. Observe without drawing attention and report anything unusual." "I will begin immediately, Your Majesty." Each detail, small on its own, formed a picture in his mind. By the time he returned to the palace, he had a clear sense of who might be involved and what their plans could entail. Kalira awaited his report, pacing in the chambers with a mixture of anticipation and tension. When Elias entered, he laid out his findings with clarity and precision. "The unrest is more organized than it appears. A faction within the outer provinces is attempting to challenge your authority. They are coordinating with outsiders and exploiting weaknesses in your defenses. The goal seems to be to destabilize the empire and force a change in leadership. The patterns are consistent. I have cross-referenced movements, communications, and resources. It is deliberate. They have underestimated human observation and reasoning, but they will not succeed if we act carefully. His mind worked differently than hers or her council's, and that difference could be the key to protecting the Empire. The following days were filled with preparation. Kalira discreetly strengthened palace defenses, while Elias trained the guards in new strategies that combined alien technology with human tactics. He introduced simple yet effective measures, creating hidden patrol routes, setting up observation points that took advantage of natural cover, and teaching guards how to anticipate the moves of the enemy rather than simply reacting. The alien council was skeptical at first, questioning the need for human methods in a world that had long relied on alien superiority. But when Elias demonstrated the effectiveness of his strategies through simulations and small exercises, they could no longer deny his value. His approach relied not on brute strength, but on intelligence, creativity, and adaptability, qualities that many in Zorinthia had long ignored or dismissed. Kalira watched him during these exercises, her thoughts a mix of admiration and unease. The resemblance to her lost husband was ever present, but it was more than just appearance. Elias carried a calm bravery, a willingness to act decisively yet thoughtfully that reminded her of the man she had loved. She knew she could not allow personal feelings to cloud her judgment, yet she found herself drawn to his presence more than she had expected. One evening, the tension in the palace reached a new level. Reports came of a coordinated strike in the northern districts, designed to draw the palace guards away and create chaos. Elias analyzed the situation quickly, identifying the enemy's likely path and predicting the timing of the attack. He proposed a plan that would protect the palace while allowing minimal forces to respond to the northern threat. Kalira approved the plan, trusting his judgment. As the night fell, the palace moved into a quiet state of readiness. Guards were stationed at strategic points, drones patrolled the perimeter, and hidden traps were in place. Elias positioned himself at a vantage point where he could observe movements without being seen, his mind calculating every possibility. The first wave of intruders arrived, moving swiftly and quietly, confident in their plan. Elias watched, noting the deviations from their expected path. When one of the attackers tried to disable a security drone, Elias anticipated the move, intercepting them before any damage could occur. His actions were precise, deliberate, and without hesitation, reflecting both his training and innate human intuition. The battle that followed was brief but intense. The intruders, though technologically advanced, were unprepared for Elias' strategies. He directed the guards with clarity, coordinating movements that turned the tide in favor of the palace. The attackers were captured or forced to retreat, unable to achieve their objectives. Kalira observed the outcome from a balcony, her heart pounding with a mixture of relief and admiration. Elias had not only protected the palace, but had done so with ingenuity and courage. His actions reminded her that humans, while often underestimated, possessed qualities that could rival even the most advanced alien intellect. After the incident, Kalira summoned Elias to the palace gardens. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of alien flora and the soft hum of energy streams. "You handled the situation with remarkable skill," she said. "Your strategies were clever, efficient, and effective. You have qualities that this empire rarely sees." She realized that this was what made humans so remarkable, the combination of courage, intelligence, and moral integrity. Over the next days, the palace remained on high alert. Elias continued to observe, train, and refine strategies. His presence became a stabilizing force, instilling confidence in the guards and council members alike. The humans' ability to adapt and think creatively challenged the rigid structures of Zorinthia, proving that strength was not always measured in power alone. Kalira, meanwhile, struggled with her feelings. She admired Elias' abilities, respected his integrity, and felt a strange pull toward him that she could not explain. Yet she knew she must maintain her composure. He was a guard, a human, and not the man she had lost. Her emotions were a private matter, hidden behind the duty she owed to her empire. One night, as Elias patrolled the inner corridors, he noticed subtle signs of another potential threat. A group of servants seemed unusually nervous, whispering in hushed tones. He observed quietly, piecing together their movements and conversations, and discovered that they had been coerced by the same faction that had attacked the northern districts. Elias reported his findings to Kalira, proposing a careful approach that would neutralize the threat without causing panic or harm. Kalira followed his advice, and together they devised a plan that protected the palace and exposed the conspirators. The Empress was impressed not only by his strategic thinking, but also by his ability to act with integrity and care. He did not seek revenge or punishment, he sought justice and protection. Through these events, the bond between Kalira and Elias grew stronger, built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. He had become more than a guard. He was a partner in safeguarding the Empire, a presence that reminded her of the human qualities she had once cherished deeply. Yet the shadow of the past lingered. Kalira knew that she could not allow memory to dictate her actions. Elias was not her husband. He was his own person, capable and independent. She admired him for who he was, not for who he resembled. And still, in quiet moments, she could not help but wonder if fate had sent this human to her as a reminder of courage, love, and resilience. The days passed, and Zorinthia slowly returned to a sense of normalcy. The threats had been contained, the conspirators exposed, and the palace defenses strengthened. Elias continued his duties with quiet dedication, earning the trust of the guards and council alike. His human perspective, intelligence, and courage had begun to reshape the way the Empire viewed Earth's people. Kalira, standing on the balcony one evening, watched Elias moving among the guards. She felt a mixture of pride, nostalgia, and hope. He was not a replacement for her past, but he was a living example of human strength and ingenuity. His presence had already changed her court and, in subtle ways, her heart. As the twin moons rose over Zorinthia, casting silver light across the palace spires, Kalira knew that the coming days would bring new challenges. Yet with Elias by her side, she felt a renewed sense of confidence. Humans, she realized, were not weak or fragile. They were clever, courageous, and capable of inspiring even the most powerful of alien rulers. And for the first time in many years, Kalira allowed herself a small measure of hope, that the future of her empire, and perhaps even her own heart, could be stronger, wiser, and brighter than she had ever imagined. The palace of Zorinthia had never been more alert. Weeks of minor skirmishes and sabotage had revealed a pattern, one that Elias had carefully traced, analyzed, and reported to Empress Kalira. What had begun as small disturbances had escalated into something far more dangerous. A faction within the outer provinces, allied with rogue outsiders, was preparing a full-scale attack on the heart of the empire. The goal was clear, to overthrow the Empress and seize control. Kalira moved through the grand halls with a steady resolve, though inside she felt the tension of anticipation. She had faced challenges before, but none had tested the empire or her on this scale. Elias, her human guard, had become an indispensable part of her plans. She trusted his judgment, and she admired the way he combined intelligence, observation, and action. Yet she could not ignore the growing unease in her own heart. His resemblance to her lost husband was ever present, a reminder of courage, warmth, and loss that she had tried to leave behind. Elias began his morning patrol earlier than usual, scanning the perimeter with careful attention. The outer gates were reinforced, patrols were doubled, and drones moved in patterns that kept intruders under constant observation. Despite these precautions, Elias noticed subtle signs that suggested the enemy was preparing for a coordinated strike. The attackers were clever, using both technology and misdirection to create openings. Elias studied the patterns, predicting where and when they might strike. "Your Majesty," he said when he returned, bowing respectfully before Kalira, "I believe the attack will come tonight, focused on the eastern flank. Their goal is to draw your guards away from the palace core, creating a path to the inner chambers. Every guard, every device, every strategy must be ready. We cannot underestimate them." Guards were stationed at hidden vantage points. Observation drones moved in unpredictable patterns, and traps were set to catch intruders off guard. Elias trained both human and alien guards, teaching them to anticipate the enemy rather than react blindly. He emphasized communication, observation, and improvisation, qualities that had already proven effective in previous incidents. Kalira observed quietly, her mind racing with both tactical considerations and personal thoughts. The resemblance to her husband was never far from her mind. She had long since buried grief and longing beneath duty and responsibility, but seeing Elias act with courage, precision, and calmness brought back memories she had not thought she would feel again. Yet she reminded herself repeatedly, he was not her husband. He was his own person, worthy of respect and admiration for his own actions. As night fell, the first wave of attackers approached. Cloaked in stealth technology, they moved quickly toward the eastern flank, confident that the palace defenses would be caught off guard. But Elias had anticipated this. He had positioned guards along hidden paths, set up energy nets, and created diversions that drew the attackers into controlled zones. The first skirmish erupted, brief but intense. Guards moved in coordination, guided by Elias' calm commands. The attackers were skilled, but human ingenuity and careful planning gave the defenders an advantage. Kalira watched from her balcony, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and pride. She had faced danger before, but never with someone like Elias at her side. His actions were precise, deliberate, and full of courage. He did not rely solely on strength or technology. He relied on observation, prediction, and quick adaptation. Each move he made reflected both intelligence and instinct, qualities that reminded her of her husband in the most vivid ways. The attackers were not easily defeated. They adapted to the initial defenses, attempting to bypass traps and create chaos. Elias anticipated their changes, countering each move with a combination of alien technology and human improvisation. He directed guards to intercept reinforced weak points and used subtle misdirection to confuse the attackers. Within the palace, the council watched in awe, realizing that human thinking, creative, flexible, and intuitive, could outmatch even the most rigid alien strategies. As the battle escalated, a small group of intruders managed to breach the inner courtyard. Kalira's heart clenched, but she did not act out of fear. She stepped forward, her own powers of energy manipulation flaring with precision. She joined Elias in coordinating the defense, combining human tactics with her own authority and strength. Together, they became an unstoppable force, guiding the guards, blocking the intruders, and securing every vulnerable path. Despite their numbers, the attackers began to falter. The combination of human ingenuity, alien technology, and Kalira's leadership proved overwhelming. One by one, the intruders were captured or driven back. The eastern flank, once vulnerable, was secure, and the palace remained protected. When the battle ended, silence settled over the palace. The guards, human and alien alike, stood ready but exhausted. Elias surveyed the scene, ensuring that no hidden threats remained. He had anticipated every possible move and had directed the defense with calm authority, earning the trust and admiration of every soldier present. Kalira descended to the inner courtyard, her robes flowing like liquid light. She approached Elias, her expression a mix of relief, admiration, and something deeper she could not name. "You have done more than protect the palace," she said softly. "You have shown us a new way to think, a new way to act. Your courage, your intellect, your humanity, they are extraordinary. The palace and the empire are safe, and that is all that matters." Yet she could not ignore the warmth that rose in her chest when he spoke, the sense of reassurance and hope he brought to the empire. In the days that followed, the palace recovered from the attack. Repairs were made, strategies were reviewed, and guards trained to improve their skills. Elias continued to serve with quiet dedication, observing, analyzing, and refining defenses. The council, once skeptical of human capabilities, began to respect and even admire him. His actions had not only saved the palace, but had changed the perception of humanity in the empire. Kalira spent quiet moments reflecting on what had happened. The resemblance to her husband was undeniable, yet it was not the reason for her respect or admiration. Elias' courage, intelligence, and integrity stood on their own merit. She realized that humans were not weak or fragile. They were capable, creative, and courageous in ways that could challenge even the most advanced alien civilizations. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the palace, Kalira approached Elias in the gardens. The air was cool and fragrant with alien flowers, the soft hum of energy streams filling the space. "You have changed much in these past weeks," she said. "Not just in the palace, but in the hearts of those who serve here. You remind us that strength comes in many forms, not only through power, but through courage, intelligence, and integrity." "I only acted according to what I believed was right, Your Majesty. Humans may be different, but we can learn, adapt, and help. That is all I wish to do." Instead, it had become a reminder of human potential and the possibilities of the future. Elias was not a shadow of the past. He was a living example of courage, intelligence, and hope. In the weeks that followed, the empire began to recover from the attacks. Elias continued his duties, and Kalira worked to strengthen alliances and reinforce the palace. The council and guards had learned valuable lessons about human ingenuity, flexibility, and bravery. The people of Zorinthia began to see humans not as fragile outsiders, but as allies and equals in a universe filled with challenges. Kalira often found herself watching Elias quietly, not with longing, but with deep respect and gratitude. He had changed the course of the Empire's history through his courage, insight, and integrity. She had faced the echoes of her past, and in doing so had found a renewed sense of hope for the future. As the twin moons cast silver light over the palace spires, Kalira stood with Elias at her side, looking out over the city. The battle had tested the Empire, challenged their assumptions, and revealed the strength of humanity. And for the first time in many years, she allowed herself to believe that the future, both of her empire and of her own heart, could be brighter, stronger, and wiser than she had ever imagined. The palace was safe, the threat neutralized, and the empire united under a new understanding. Humans, with their courage, ingenuity, and integrity, were a force to be respected. And Elias, standing quietly beside the Empress, had proven that sometimes the most unlikely heroes could change the course of history. The aftermath of the attack left the palace of Zorinthia quiet, yet alive with a sense of vigilance. Repairs had been made to the gates, the energy fields had been strengthened, and the guards had settled into new routines. Despite the calm, Kalira knew the Empire could never fully relax. The recent events had exposed weaknesses, but they had also revealed a truth she had long ignored. Humans were capable of remarkable courage, intelligence, and leadership. Elias continued his duties with quiet diligence. His presence was now fully accepted by the palace guards, the council, and even the Empress herself. He moved through the halls not as a novelty, but as a trusted protector, his calm confidence inspiring those around him. The alien council, once skeptical, now sought his advice on security matters, while the guards followed his guidance in training exercises. It was clear that his human perspective had transformed the way the palace operated. Kalira often watched him in silence, observing the way he moved among the guards and the council, noticing how his simple gestures and careful words earned respect. She did not feel the ache of loss that had haunted her for decades, but instead a deep sense of admiration and relief. Elias was not her husband, yet he carried the qualities she had once cherished, and he did so as his own person. One morning, a message arrived from the outer provinces. The governors requested a meeting with Kalira to discuss the recent unrest and the actions taken to protect the empire. They were cautious, still wary of human influence, yet curious to see the guard who had played such a pivotal role. Kalira saw this as an opportunity to demonstrate the value of cooperation and trust. She called Elias to her chambers. "You will accompany me to the Council of Governors," she said. "Your insight has been invaluable, and it is time they understand your contribution firsthand." The Empire had faced a serious threat, yet through strategy, courage, and cooperation, it had survived and grown stronger. Elias had not only protected the palace, but had also reshaped the perception of humans within her empire. The councils, the guards, and even some of the citizens now saw that humans were more than fragile outsiders. They were allies, thinkers, and leaders. The Council of Governors convened in a grand hall adorned with tapestries and energy fields that pulsed softly. Kalira took her place at the head, with Elias standing beside her. The governors, proud and reserved, regarded the human with curiosity and some skepticism. One of the senior governors spoke first. "Your Majesty, we have heard much of this human guard and his role in recent events. It is unusual for a human to serve at this level, yet the results speak for themselves. Tell us, Empress, what makes him so capable?" "His methods have saved the palace, protected the empire, and demonstrated the true strength of humanity. That is all I wish to do. Let this be a lesson to the empire. We grow stronger when we recognize the value of all who serve, regardless of origin." Back in the palace, Kalira and Elias walked through the gardens in quiet reflection. The twin moons bathed the alien flora in silver light, creating an atmosphere of peace and renewal. Kalira spoke softly, choosing her words carefully. "You have changed much in this palace, Elias, not just in the defense of the empire, but in the hearts of those who serve here. You remind us that courage and integrity can inspire even the most powerful beings. It seems that the qualities you admire were passed to me not just by nature, but by choice. You have reminded me that the future is not just about survival. It is about understanding, cooperation, and trust." He was not a replacement, yet in his actions, he honored the qualities she had loved so long ago. In the following weeks, the palace returned to routine. The threat had passed, but the lessons remained. Guards trained with renewed discipline, incorporating Ilia's strategies and human insight. The council embraced a more flexible approach to governance, recognizing that creativity and intelligence could complement traditional power. Kalira often walked among them, observing quietly, feeling the pulse of the empire shift toward greater cooperation and understanding. Ilias continued his duties, yet he also began teaching others to think like him, observing, analyzing, and acting with integrity. The humans under his guidance became examples of courage and intelligence, earning respect from even the most skeptical of aliens. Kalira watched with quiet pride. The empire had been tested and had emerged stronger, not just through technology or power, but through trust, ingenuity, and the simple yet profound qualities that humans offered. One evening, Kalira called Ilias to her private chambers. She had made a decision, not about politics or strategy, but about acknowledgement. "Ilias," she said, "you have done more than serve as a guard. You have protected the empire, inspired its people, and shown that humanity can rise to meet challenges we once thought impossible. I want the empire to recognize your contributions officially. You have done both. The council and the people will know of your courage, intelligence, and integrity. Your presence has changed this empire, and for that, you deserve recognition." Kalira addressed the assembly, praising Ilias for his role in defending the palace and the empire. She spoke of his courage, intelligence, and ability to act with honor in the face of danger. She emphasized that his actions were not just human achievements, but lessons for all, that strength, ingenuity, and integrity could surpass fear and challenge. Ilias accepted the recognition with humility. He did not boast or claim superiority, but simply acknowledged the honor and reiterated his commitment to serve. The assembly responded with respect and admiration, the perception of humans forever changed in the hearts of those present. Later, Kalira and Ilias walked together in the palace gardens. The air was cool, the alien flowers fragrant, and the stars above seemed to shine more brightly than ever. Kalira spoke softly, her voice filled with reflection. "You have reminded me, Ilias, that the past is not a chain. It is a guide, and the future can be brighter because of what you have shown us. I do not seek to replace the past, Your Majesty. I only wish to serve in the present and help shape a future that is safer and stronger for all." Instead, it was a reminder that courage, intelligence, and honor could endure across generations, across species, and across the vast expanse of the universe. In the weeks that followed, the palace settled into a new rhythm. Guards trained more efficiently, councils made wiser decisions, and the empire looked to the future with renewed confidence. Humans, once underestimated, were now seen as valuable allies and capable contributors to the empire's strength. Ilias had proven that heroism was not a matter of size or power, but of courage, integrity, and the ability to think beyond expectation. Kalira often stood on her balcony at night, watching the stars with Ilias nearby. She no longer felt the ache of loss alone. She felt hope, trust, and admiration. The empire had been challenged, tested, and strengthened. Humans had earned their place in Zorinthia not as guests or outsiders, but as partners and heroes. And in that quiet, silver-lit night, Kalira allowed herself to believe in a future that was stronger, wiser, and brighter. Ilias had arrived as a guard, yet he had become something far more profound, a symbol of courage, intelligence, and the enduring spirit of humanity. The empire was safe, the people inspired, and the lessons learned would endure for generations to come. The palace glimmered under the light of the twin moons, a testament to resilience, unity, and the unexpected power of a human guard who had changed everything simply by being brave, clever, and honorable. And Kalira, standing beside him, finally allowed herself to hope, not for the past to return, but for the future to shine brighter than she had ever imagined.